Hey guys, it's me, Stormie, starting to talk to you about the planets and the energies that they give off to us as we look at a chart so you can kind of understand what they're guiding you to. So we're going to start with Mars. Mars is that planet of ambition, aggression, energy, initiative, assertiveness, action. This is the action planet. So in your chart, it's the planet that guides what we do and how we get it done. So if you're more passive, if you are more of a super go-getter, and the things that you're passionate towards, how do you pursue your career? How do you move towards the arts? How do you move towards your family? How do you move towards love? How do you move through love? That's the kind of things that Mars is governing over. And what's really, really great, I think, about it is because when you look at where Mars is, you see where your passions come in. You see the things that may naturally drive you towards your version of greatness. Now, Mars is nicknamed, quite rightly so, I think, the warrior, and rules over the sign of Aries, who we know is a warrior. He's like, yes, let's hunt it. Let's go get it. Let's chase it down and collect. You know, very much so that warrior energy. Mars rules over the first house. That's the house of self, of me, how I move through the world, how I perceive myself, self. So Mars rules right over that. Now, one thing I consistently think this is really funny is that, okay, so unlike Mercury, when he goes retrograde, he takes a nap for 3 weeks and then we get on with it, right? Mars does what Mars wants, right? I do what I want. That's that energy. When Mars goes retrograde once every 2 years, he goes retrograde for 10 weeks. Like, that is a nap and a half, right? But I guess if you're made up of all that fire and fury, you got to take a little bit more downtime. So Mars retrogrades for 10 weeks. But depending on what zodiac sign Mars is sitting in, we get that presence for about 6 to 7 weeks, which is a really delicious chunk of time to work with it, really. It takes Mars about 2 years to make a complete rotation through the zodiac sign. So one other thing I think you've got to know, or at least have an idea about, is the most specific and efficient use of this Mars energy is where it's exalted. And Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Don't worry, there'll be the exalted videos coming up too so we can get more in depth. But basically what the exalted means is it's where it's the most dignified, the most efficient, the most pure use of this Mars energy is in Capricorn. And that's because Mars is all fiery and let's go get it. And Capricorn is cool, calm, and collective. So they provide this really nice balance where you get to see the most deliciousness of Mars being used in this kind of opposite feeling energy. So that's a little bit about Mars, so you'll understand how those energies affect as you look at your charts and as we continue to learn about astrology. Feel free to subscribe down below. I would love you too. Also, you can like, you can share, you can join me on Facebook, check out the new blog post and all of the good stuff that just keeps us connected. I'll see you tomorrow in the video about Venus. Hello, guys. Today I am covering Venus. Venus is that planet of love, of romance, of relationships, and also of finances. People sometimes miss that, but she's also the planet of finances. So Venus is teaching us about the way we look at love, the way we look at relationships, the way we act on our needs, our desires, our passions, and the role that people and that money and relationships play in our lives to serve us as we move through our journey. So that's the kind of energy we see when Venus is around. Venus is also known as a lesser benefic planet. With Jupiter is the greater benefic planet, which means benefic, you hear benefit in there. So when stuff is going on in the chart and Venus is floating around, she's providing support, a benefit, a helper, kind of a nice, comfortable, loving, warm cushion to help you through whatever you're growing to or towards or whatever that energy is about. So Venus is a helper, and so is Jupiter. But for now, Venus also has a nickname of the love goddess. I mean, could you imagine anything else? She's absolutely delicious. Venus rules over 2 signs, Taurus and Libra. Venus is also the ruler over the 2nd house, and that's the house of money. That's the house of self-worth, and the 7th house, the house of partnerships, which is Libra. Venus is really interesting to me in the way that she moves, because Venus, when she comes into a specific zodiac sign, she stays there for about 3 or 4 weeks. And really, because she's so benefic, By the end of that 3rd or 4th week, you have started to really grasp the lesson, so it's okay for her to move on. And that's a really interesting thing about a planet, because sometimes, like with Mars, you don't want it to leave because you're like, that is so good, I need that energy, don't ever go away. With Venus, it's like, oh, thank you so much for showing up to help me. Now, it takes Venus about a year to a year and a half to make it completely around the zodiac, which, you know, that's a pretty quick trip if you're going next to some of the other planets. Now, when Venus does retrograde, she retrogrades every year to a year and a half, and she stays in retrograde for about 6 weeks. So when Venus goes to sleep, I think we really feel it. We really feel a shift in our love. We feel a shift in our perceived relationships and our perceived needs and desires. But the thing is because she's still a lesser benefic planet, even when she's sleeping and shading from us a little bit, she's still super duper helpful. So Venus is actually one of these planets, because it's my ruling planet, I think. I'm just so in love with her. There's lots of mythology and Roman mythology about Venus as well, so you can also check that out. Now, Venus is actually exalted in Pisces. And don't worry, I'm going to do an exalted video as well. But exalted basically means that in Pisces is where you see the very best, the very pure, the most dignified use of this Venus energy. It kind of balances it out and really offers it out there to the world. So you'll understand more when the exalted videos come up. But this is just a small snapshot of what Venus and this Venus energy looks like. So as you're looking through your charts, you can kind of understand what she's offering to whichever sign and whichever house she's in on your chart. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow with the next planet video. Don't forget to subscribe. Oh my gosh, I almost didn't say that. Please subscribe, like, and share the video. Bye, guys. Hey guys, it's me, Stormie. Today I am talking to you about the planet Mercury. And Mercury is that planet that guides the way we think, the way we speak, even some of the communication devices that we would be drawn to. Mercury holds the handle on that one as well. So it's kind of like, you know, are you scatterbrained in the way you think? Are you very methodical? Are you inquisitive? Are you, you know, the way that you think about things as well? When you communicate, how do you communicate? Are you super logical? Are you emotional? Are you practical? Are you a practical speaker? Things like that. Mercury's location in your chart tells us about all of that, because that's what Mercury influences. Now, here's a cool thing. Mercury never goes more than 28 degrees from the sun. So most of the time, if you look at a person's birth chart, you'll see that Mercury and the sun are usually right about in that same sign, because Mercury just chooses to not be without the sun, which, hey, if you get a buddy, might as well pair up, right? Now, some fun facts about Mercury. Mercury is actually known as the messenger, rules over the zodiac signs of Gemini and Virgo. And so Mercury also rules over 2 different houses. The 3rd house, which is of thoughts and communication, and the 6th house, which is about details and routines, job skills, things like that. So things that require detailed planning or detailed things to get through them. Those are the houses that Mercury rules over. Mercury goes retrograde every year, just a few times, and we're in it right now, and Mercury stays retrograde for about 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So, and it really does retrograde 3 or 4 times through the year. So it's only 3 weeks. We're in it right now. Hopefully it's not too horrible for you at this particular moment in time. But another cool thing about Mercury is that Mercury is exalted in Virgo. And don't worry, I'm going to do an exalted video so we can get a little bit more in depth in that. But basically, what it means when a planet is exalted is that it's the most pure and the most dignified, that you'll get to see this planet's energy. And in this case, it's in Virgo. So it really is like, when it's exalted, it provides this beautiful, dignified balancing act that happens. So I'll be doing another video on all of the exalted, so you don't have to miss out on a single thing. Don't worry. Feel free to subscribe. That would just be delicious and delightful. You can also you can share the video. If you've got questions, post them down below and I'll get to you ASAP. All right, guys. Bye. Hey guys, it's me, Stormie, and tonight we are talking about the moon and the moon energies. Now, the moon, in terms of astronomy, is not considered a planet. But for astrology purposes, it absolutely is, and plays an absolutely big part in our inner world, in our life patterns, in our emotions, and our reactions to things. So it's a planet for us. So we know that the moon goes from new to full and then back to the new. So there's 8 different stages of the moon happening during the month, which very, very much so affect the way your behaviors are. The way your behaviors are this day as opposed to when they were 3 days ago. Now, the placement of the moon in your chart really is speaking to your emotional tendencies, not so much necessarily your behavior, but your emotional reactions, your emotional tendencies, and those kinds of things. So when you see that moon placement in your chart, you more than likely react in a certain way. Now, the moon rules over the sign of Cancer. My goodness, it must be Mercury retrograde. It rules over the sign of Cancer. And the moon, I think, is really cool because it's one of those non-planets that never retrogrades. The moon also stays in each zodiac sign for just about 2.5 days, and the moon makes a full and complete trip through the zodiac once every month. The moon is a mover and shaker. That's all I'm saying. And for astrology purposes, the moon is exalted in Taurus. Now, don't worry, I'm going to do exalted videos too so we can get a little bit more in depth. But basically, when we say exalted in astrology, what we mean is that when we find the moon in Taurus, that is the most pure, the most efficient, and the most dignified use of that moon energy than it is anywhere in the zodiac. And so it really provides this kind of balancing out that's very dignified and very, very lovely. So don't worry, we'll get to the exalted videos here shortly, but that's a little bit about the moon energy and its placement in your chart. So as you're looking around your chart and you see the moon placement, you can start to understand it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very much. Make sure you join us on Facebook, the new blog, and definitely rate the video and share. Bye guys, I'll see you in the next planet video. Hey guys, it's Stormie, and tonight I am talking to you about the sun. Now, the sun, as we know, is our most powerful body in the astrological sky. It gives us the influences of our personalities, our overall energies, our expressions of how we put ourselves out there, and that blend with our personalities. So, what I think is cool about the sun is because the sun is the one that you really just get to take some serious ownership of, because all of the planets were somewhere. They were in one of the 12 zodiac signs the day that you were born, at the time that you were born. But the sun sign is the one that is like, it's yours at the exact time and place of your birth. That's where the sun, the overall energy was at, making you, giving you your overall presence. So in astronomy, though, the sun is considered the center of the universe, right? And everything else does what it does around it. But in astrology, it's not that way because we're what is called Earth-centric. So it's us looking out at the rest of the planets and believing that it pretty much revolves around us. Imagine that. And so really, when we talk about your sun signs shifting from one zodiac, the sun shifting from one zodiac sign to the next, it's not really the sun that's moving, but because we are Earth-centric, we take it that way and take our connection and relationships from that, from the Earth perspective. Now, the sun rules the zodiac sign of Leo. And the sun also rules the 5th house. That's the house of expression, of play, of children. That's a really lovely, fun, expansive, expressive house, I think. And the sun never retrogrades, so that's really kind of cool. The sun stays in each zodiac sign for about 1 month. And it takes the sun 1 year to make a complete trip through the zodiac sign. Now, the sun itself is exalted in Aries. And don't worry, I'm going to do another video on the exaltations of all of these so that we can get a little bit more in depth with them. But basically, when a planet is exalted somewhere, it's where you're going to get the most pure, the most dignified, and the most efficient use of this energy. And for the sun, it is in Aries. I hope you like this video. It's a little bit helpful. So as you're looking at your sun sign on your chart and just coming to understand it, you'll have a little bit more insight into what we're talking about over here in astrology. Feel free to subscribe to this video, please. I would love that. Rate, which I think is the better way to say that, and definitely share. If you've got questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below, and I will see you tomorrow in our next planet video. Bye, guys. Hey guys, it's me, Stormie. So tonight we're going to talk about the planet Pluto. Pluto is our smallest planet, but he's in charge of major transformations, all about death and rebirth. And that can be in multiple different fashions. Really, Pluto is responsible for breaking down the old and making room to rebuild the new. And that's why you're going to understand a little bit about it as we talk about it. Pluto can also represent power and control in our relationships with people in authority, our own perceptions of ourselves as leaders and how we act in that way, shape, and form too. So some more details about Pluto. Pluto is nicknamed the Lord of the Underworld. I mean, can you even not believe that? That totally makes sense. And Pluto rules over one of our most passionate zodiac signs, which is Scorpio. Pluto is one of those planets that is not exalted. So if you've heard about the exaltations in other videos, this is one of those planets that is not. Pluto rules over the 8th house, and that 8th house, along with being about a lot of things, it really is about deepness, the transformation, and intimacy. It really is, and can be a lot about sexuality as well. Now, when Pluto retrogrades, this is one slow moving planet for real. Now, Pluto retrogrades once every single year. When he does retrograde, he stays retrograde for about 5 months. But that takes time, right? When we're tearing down the old, we don't just zip out of our old selves and right into our new ones. It takes time for us to see our old ideas aren't working. It takes time for us to see the ways that we're hurting and the joy that we want to express and grow out of that, right? So it takes time. So that's why it takes so long when he's kind of doing what he does. Now, when he is in each zodiac sign, he stays in each zodiac sign for 15 to 25 years. That's a long time to get to work on these things, right? To get to work on that intimacy, that sexuality, the power, the control, the authority, the leadership, things like that. People develop in a lifetime in Pluto's influence. Then when Pluto takes his entire trip around the zodiac, the full hits all 12, it takes him 250 years. So potentially, all I'm saying, I don't know your business, but the next time Pluto makes his full trip around the zodiac, you or I may not be here. So that's a little bit about Pluto. I will see you tomorrow in the video about Jupiter. Bye, guys. Of course, you can click the links below and subscribe and get some more details if you need them down below. Bye, guys. Hello everybody, it's Stormie, and tonight we're talking about Jupiter. Jupiter is one of my favorite planets because he's about luck and expansion. And in expansion, we talk about how Jupiter expands our minds, how he makes us more aware, how we grow in our lives. Even our physical spaces can be about this kind of expansion. And of course, the way we view and perceive things throughout our life as well, because Jupiter is about luck. He is the influence that controls how much luck we have in certain areas of our life, how much opportunity, especially where we are in education and our unique skills and talents that we have in that field. It's really interesting to see how Jupiter affects the chart when you get to look at it and see the way that he works. Now, the nickname for Jupiter is the greater benefic planet. And remember, Venus is the lesser benefic, but when Jupiter's around, he's the greater benefic because he just brings all of these benefits. Even when he's in retrograde, he's a super supporter. Jupiter rules over the sign of Sagittarius. Go Sag! Is exalted in Cancer. And don't worry, the exaltation videos will be up next so that you can understand how that works. But basically, when a planet is exalted, in that sign is when you're going to see this planet be the very best that it can be. It is like the most divine representation of this sign. I'll explain all of that in another video. Jupiter rules over the 9th house. That's the house of faraway places, which include long-range goals, long-range travel, higher education, things that seem high and far away is what this house is all over. Now, when Jupiter retrogrades, it happens about a year to every year and a half, and he stays retrograde usually about 4 months. So not so bad. And like I said, even when he retrogrades, he's super duper helpful. Now, it takes Jupiter 12 years to make a full rotation of the zodiac, and he stays in each sign for about 1 year. So that's a little bit of information on Jupiter so that you'll know what we're talking about as we start to look at where Jupiter's at in your different charts. Bye, guys. I'll see you tomorrow when we talk about Neptune. Hey guys, it's Stormie tonight talking about the planet Neptune. And Neptune is over our spirituality and our subconscious minds. Now, what I love about Neptune is because it's all about our hopes, our dreams, our fantasies, our beliefs, our imaginations, and our connectivity to that spirituality and that divine energy, right? But with Neptune, even though he's all about compassion and charity and creation and connectivity and all of these wonderful divine things that help us develop here, Neptune can also be quite deceiving. So when Neptune is in the picture, we have to be very careful because he can be so dreamy and so idealistic that we literally get caught up in the fantasy and we don't see the reality of it until later. But by then we've already made all of these decisions based off of fantasy when the reality just needed a couple more days to play out. Neptune is nicknamed Nebulous Neptune, rules over Pisces, and is exalted in Leo. Now, when a planet is exalted, it means that in that sign is when you're going to see this planet be the very best, the most pure, the most honest, the most dignified, the most divine that this planet is ever going to be. I'll do an exaltation video another time, so don't worry about that for right now. Now, like I said, Neptune is over subconscious and spirituality, which is our 12th house. Neptune retrogrades every year, and he only retrogrades for about 5 months. That's how long it lasts. It takes Neptune 14 years to make a trip around the entire zodiac, which is pretty quick. Neptune's a pretty fast-moving planet compared to like Pluto, who takes 250 years, right? Neptune also is one of those planets that when I describe him, I really like to describe him. He shows up and he's kind of the hippie, honestly, and he's like, let's just love everybody. Let's hold hands and give to everybody. So if you see Neptune in your chart, you'll understand why some part of your chart may be a little bit more dreamy, a little bit more fantasy, and a little bit more fantastic than some other areas you may be experiencing. All right, guys, subscribe to the channel down below. Leave your questions and comments, and we're going to keep moving with 90 videos in 90 days. Hey guys, it's me, Stormie, and tonight we're talking about Saturn. Now, Saturn is that planet that is about lessons, about karmic lessons. It's all about limitations as well. And because Saturn is so known for the limitations and the pressure and the restrictions that he brings, sometimes when you see the transits and the aspects in someone's chart, they're just kind of like, oh my gosh, it can be a little bit dreaded, honestly, because they know that that's really the area that Saturn is asking a person to grow and work in. And even though it seems like troublesome or it seems scary, really, truly, Saturn is here to tie you to your karmic lessons. And basically, you're going to see when you look at someone's chart, where Saturn is aspecting or where he's located on the chart is where he's really asking you to get some karmic soul level lessons. And you know that as it's dictated by your chart. So hopefully you have a chart done. But the thing is if you work on those things that Saturn is aspecting or showing you or pointing you to, you really get to reap some of the rewards. And the big thing really when we're looking at a chart and we see Saturn is when we're looking at the Saturn return. And so that's basically the date and the time that Saturn returns to the exact point in the date and the time that it was in your chart. So obviously it's not going to be on your birthday, but it's going to be about 28 to 30 years after you were born. And at that time, it's really, we like to think of it as kind of like Saturn Judgment Day. Because he's going to come back to you, check in and say, okay, it's been about 28, 30 years. Have you learned the lessons I asked you to learn while you were here that you agreed to come learn? And if you have, it's like, okay, cool. You get to unwind some of those and life takes on a little bit of a different feel. If you haven't, he really has to dole out some pressure and responsibility for you to get those things. Now, the nickname for Saturn is, of course, the Taskmaster, but I like to call him the Hammer. He rules over the sign of Capricorn, and Saturn is exalted in Libra. When a planet is exalted, it means that when you find it in the sign, it is the most pure and divine and most honest representation of this sign. Don't worry, I'll do a video on exaltations, so let's not stress that yet. Saturn is a planet that is in the 10th house of careers, authority, and publicity. So really, you see what I mean? He's not just around here running around being crazy, making us all hate him. He's really here doing some useful work. Saturn stays in each zodiac sign for just about 2.5 years. Saturn takes 28 to 29 years to make a complete trip through the zodiac. So you see the Judgment Day comes back to pass, right? And then when Saturn goes retrograde, it's about once a year, and he stays retrograde for about 4 to 5 months. So we really, honestly, when Saturn goes retrograde, it's good and the bad. It's the good and the bad of it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So that's what we've got today on Saturn. Got some details down below on the channel. Of course, you can subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow when we talk about Uranus. Hey guys, it's Stormie today talking to you about Uranus or Uranus, depending on how you say it. But this is the planet that is about spontaneity, great awakenings, change, surprise. This planet comes around and just kind of knocks things off kilter, like kicks you back a little bit where you go, whoa, 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 and you get to see how you are on your feet. And literally, you know, when big opportunities come or when things shift suddenly, you know, are you fast on your feet and you're able to go with it, or does it take you forever to regroup and just kind of get it together? When there's big opportunities presented to you, do you take them by the balls and you're like, yeah, let's go do it? Or are you like, oh my gosh, so much so that you miss it? Whatever that looks like for you, Uranus, or Uranus, the way you say it, is the way, that's the planet that dictates the way that you're going to be in that area. Now, the nickname of Uranus is the Great Awakener. Imagine that. It rules over Aquarius, is his sign. Now, what I think is interesting about this sign is that it's exalted in Scorpio. Such an intense sign. But when a planet is exalted, what it means is that it is in that sign the most divine and the most pure and the most honest representation of the sign. It's like the sign at its very, or the planet at its very, very best. So I'll do a video on exaltation, so don't worry, we'll cover that later. Now, Uranus is over the 11th house. That's the house of the future. The house of, yeah, I think the future is just the best way to explain that one. Uranus, when he retrogrades, he does every single year. Each retrograde lasts exactly 5 months, and then we get to get on with it, which is kind of cool. Uranus stays in each zodiac sign for about 6 to 7 years before he moves on. Now, it takes Uranus 84 years to complete one exact trip around all 12 of the zodiac signs. So that's kind of cool. He is one of the faster moving planets, unlike Pluto, who's hanging out at 250 years to just come on and get it done. So I will see you guys tomorrow when we talk about Neptune. Go ahead and click the link, subscribe to the channel, or leave your questions and comments down below. Bye, guys.